Welcome back to Tremblay Theater. This is scene three of Act One. I'm sorry I tried to get my son to help me a little bit, but it's pretty tough reading for a fourth grader, so it's just my voice you'll have to hear again, but hopefully it's helpful. This is scene three where we actually finally meet Juliet. So we've moved off the street and now we are in a room at the Capulet house, at the Capulet mansion. And this is a conversation between Lady Capulet, who's Juliet's mom, and Juliet and the nurse. Now, the nurse is, somebody who is like a live-in nanny. Think of her that way, right? She's pretty much raised Juliet. She's been with Juliet ever since she was a baby. And so that is, those are the characters in this scene. So we'll go ahead and we'll read the scene. We'll pause like we have before and just make sure we understand what's going on. The nurse is going to go into quite a long tirade, a kind of an explanation, and it's a little bit weird, but we'll read the whole thing before I stop that section with the nurse. So, well, here we go. So Lady Capulet and the nurse are here together. Lady Capulet says, "Nurse, where is my daughter? Call her forth to me." Nurse says, "Now, by my maidenhead, at 12-year-old I bade her come. What lamb, what lady bird, God forbid, where's this girl? What, Juliet?" And so now Juliet is here. "How now? Who calls?" "Your mother." "Madam, I am here. What is your will?" "This is the matter. Nurse, give leave a while. We must talk in secret." "Nurse, come back again. I have remembered me. Thou hearest our counsel. Thou knowest my daughter's of a pretty age." "Faith, I can tell her age unto an hour." "She's not 14. "I'll lay 14 of my teeth, and yet, to my teeth be it spoken, I have but 4. She is not 14. How long is it now till Lammas tide?" "A fortnight and odd days." Okay, I'm going to pause here right before the nurse has her very long, spiel that she's going to go on. Some things that you might have noticed, right? Obviously the nurse is hired help, right? So they talk to her like she is. She knows Juliet really well, and Lady Capulet starts to say, "Let us talk in private," and then remembers, wait, you probably know her better than I do. You know everything that's going on. Why would I have you go away? Please stay here. So it might just show that Juliet's mom is maybe not that close to her. So maybe it just gives us a heads up to think about that. And it confirms that she's not yet 14. And Lamastide is just a celebration around Juliet's birthday. And how long? A fortnight and odd days. So a fortnight being the 2 weeks, and a few more days. So Juliet's birthday is only a couple of weeks away. That's all that's saying. So then the nurse goes on to explain how well she knows Juliet. So let's read this all together. She says, "Even or odd, of all the days in the year, come Lammas Eve at night, shall she be 14. Susan and she, God rest all Christian souls, were of an age. Well, Susan is with God. She was too good for me. But, as I said, on Lammas Eve at night, shall she be 14. That shall she, Mary, I remember it well. 'Tis since the earthquake now 11 years, and she was weaned. I never shall forget it, of all the days of the year upon that day, for I had then laid wormwood to my dug, sitting in the sun under the dove-house wall. My lord and you were then at Mantua. Nay, I do bear a brain. But, as I said, when it did taste the wormwood on the nipple of my dug, and felt it bitter, pretty fool, to see it touchy and fall out with the dug. Shake, quoth the dove-house, 'twas no need, I trow, to bid me trudge. And since that time it is 11 years, for then she could stand alone. Nay, by the rood, she could have run and waddled all about, for even the day before she broke her brow. And then my husband, God be with his soul, was a merry man, took up the child. Yea, quoth he, dost thou fall upon thy face? Thou wilt fall backward when thou hadst more wit. Wilt that not, Jewel? And, by my holidame, the pretty wretch left crying, and said, to see now how a jest shall come about, I warrant, and I should live 1,000 years, I never should forget it. Wilt that not, Jewel? Quoth he. And, pretty fool, it stinted and said, So, again, very complex, and she's doing this flashback to, I've been with Juliet since she was 2 years old. I've been with her this whole time. And this passage gives us a lot of information about how the nurse sort of came to be and how really involved the nurse has been in bringing Juliet up. You might have noticed up here, right? She mentions Juliet's birthday is coming soon, and so would have Susan's, right? Susan and she, God rest all Christian souls, were of an age. Well, Susan is with God now. So if you can kind of infer, the nurse had a baby named Susan who had passed away when she was young. And so she comes and she ends up nursing Juliet, and not nursing just as like a doctor, but breastfeeding Juliet. And that's how you find that out through all of this. The idea of like wormwood on my Doug, and wormwood on the nipple of my Doug, that is something that's used to wean babies off of breastfeeding. So you're getting them to stop breastfeeding. So she really was her nurse. She nursed her. And she tells this story about, her kind of falling on her face because she was toddling around, and how funny it is. And her husband made a joke, and her husband is also now with God. So her husband has passed away. And so she's really just taking the time to say, I really do know Juliet. I've been so close to her. I care so much about her. And she's kind of, just like any mom would, sharing a silly story about when you were young. It's sort of what the nurse is doing. And you got to ask, well, why would Shakespeare have her do that? So think about that. Maybe answer it to yourself. But I think the reason he does is to show us that the nurse is actually closer to Juliet than Juliet's mom is, and that might play a part in Juliet's decision making. Who she goes to or what choices she makes. That the nurse is closer to her. She's closer to the nurse than her mom. So then Lady Capulet's going to try to stop her. The nurse is going to go on for a little bit longer. Lady Capulet says, "Enough of this, I pray thee, hold thy peace. Yes, madame, yet I cannot choose but laugh, to think it should leave crying and say and yet I warrant it had upon its brow a bump as big as a young cockerel's stone, a parlous knock, and it cried bitterly. Yea, quoth my husband, fallest upon thy face? Thou wilt fall backward when thou comest to age. Wilt thou not, Jule?" It stinted and said A. Juliet finally says something and says, "And stint thou too, I pray thee, nurse, say I." Pretty much stop talking, right? Like, stop. I get it. We get it. Stop talking. "Peace, I have done. Good mark thee to his grace. Thou wast the prettiest babe that ever I nursed, and I might live to see thee married once. I have my wish." "Marry, that marry is the very theme I came to talk of. Tell me, daughter Juliet, how stands your disposition to be married?" Now, this is a big question. Are you ready to get married? How do you feel about being married? Juliet's answer is, "It is an honor that I dream not of." Right? And you play around with words there, and it's an honor I dream not of. I do not dream of this honor, right? I don't want to get married. "An honor were not I thine only nurse, I would say thou hadst sucked wisdom from thy teat." And Lady Capulet says, "Well, think of marriage now. Younger than you here in Verona, ladies of esteem are made already mothers. By my count, I was your mother much upon these years, that you are now a maid. Thus, then in brief, the valiant Paris seeks you for his love. A man, young lady, such a man as all the world. Why, he is a man of wax," right? Like, really beautiful. He's super handsome, right? You should take him, she's saying. "Verona's summer hath not such a flower." Right? So now we're getting into this, another metaphor. He's a flower. Oh, he's so pretty. "Nay, he's a flower, in faith, a very flower. What say you? Can you love the gentleman? This night you shall behold him at your feast. Read o'er the volume of young Paris's face, and find delight writ there with beauty's pen. Examine every marriage lineament, and see how one another lends content. And what obscured in this fair volume lies, find written in the margent of his eyes. This precious book of love, this unbound lover, to beautify him only lacks a cover. The fish lives in the sea, and 'tis much pride, for fair without the fair within to hide. That book in many's eyes doth share the glory, that in gold clasps locks in the golden story. So shall you share all that he doth possess, by having him making yourself no less." So she goes in to really do this sonnet, right? It's a 14-line rhyming poem. She's saying the sonnet about give Paris a chance. And you might see she does an extended metaphor comparing Paris to what, right? Read over the volume of his face. Beauty's pen has, has written there. Talks about the volume again here. Talks about the margin. Talks about a cover, right? So if you put on the clasps, all of this, right? She's talking about a book. She's comparing him to this book. You should read this book, and really, it's your love story, and you could be a part of this love story. This could be your book together. He just needs you. He just needs this other part. And so she's saying, give him a chance. Nurse says, no less, nay, bigger, women grow by men. Speak briefly. Can you like of Paris's love? And she says, I'll look to like, if looking liking move. But no more deep will I endart mine eye, than your consent gives strength to make it fly. So this is another one of those, almost riddle type sections. You think about what she's saying. I'll look to like if looking liking move, right? Like I'll look at him, and I'll give it a chance, and I'm really only going to do so because you're asking me, right? Because she says, no more deep will I endart mine eye, than your consent gives strength to make it fly. I'm only doing this because you're asking me to, and I'm not going to like force myself to like him. I'll see how it goes. And if I'm moved by him, if I think, there's something there, that's great. But otherwise, I'm not going to force it. Then the servant comes in to interrupt. Madam, the guests are come. Supper served up. You called. My young lady asked for. The nurse cursed in the pantry, and everything in extremity. I must hence to wait. I beseech you, follow straight. We will follow thee. The servant goes. Juliet, the county stays. Go, girl, seek happy days, happy nights to happy days. And the nurse is also kind of confirming, go have fun tonight. Go see if your potential husband is at this party. So hopefully you're sort of piecing this all together right now, right? You have Romeo, who's having a pity party for himself. He's sad because he's in love with Rosaline and she's not in love with him. But he has now been invited to this party, unbeknownst to the Capulets. He might be going, right? Paris is going there to see if he can woo Juliet and get her hand in marriage. Juliet's mom has now asked Juliet to go to see if she can fall in love with Paris. So you have a lot going on here, and knowing the play, knowing enough about this play, you probably can anticipate that none of this is going to go the way that this is being set up. So this is a lot of tension that Shakespeare is creating here. He's giving us there's a lot of dramatic irony. We have a lot of knowledge that other people, or that the characters in the play don't have, which just creates that tension for us to keep reading and keep seeing, what is going to happen. So that is the second scene of this act. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and now you only have one more, and then you're done with your scenes for today. So see you soon.